Hi people, I'm gonna go ahead and jump straight into this. As you can see here, I already have all my layers. Currently I'm on the color layer. And right on the bottom here, I'm going to be adding in the base colors to my drawing. And I'm not going to refer to this too much, but here you can see my layers. I've got the line layer, I've got the color layer. Right now I'm just fixing up some lines, just for my own mental clarity, I would assume. But, yes, going in and drawing some new lines. And mind you, I'm doing a voiceover right now, so this is going so much faster than what I... Oh, but there I go, I flipped it around. That was just to get a better line. And now looking back at this, I think I was spending too much time fixating on what these lines look like, but ultimately I'm glad that I did it. So yeah, just making sure that the perspective's right on the bed, redrawing lines over and over again, even though there's a line tool, but you know, there's a little bit of, there's just personality that comes with hand-drawn straight lines that I was trying to keep in mind there. Unfortunately, I didn't start recording until I had already put down the color. But that's okay, and this is, I just referred back to an old drawing that I did because I wanted to capture the same kind of styles, like softness in there. As I was saying in my other videos, hair always kind of messes me up mentally because I want to fixate it on so long and draw every single individual hair. But that doesn't really work always. And so yeah, the thing that's flashing back and forth, that purple, that's my shadow layer. And so I have 3 different layers. One is the line layer, one is the shadow layer, which is that purple haze, and one is the color layer. And you can see I'm turning them on and off just to see where everything's gonna lay, especially with that line. And yes, right now I'm working on the color layer, so I'm just making sure I have all those colors charted in there, marked in, cleaning up my lines, and adding some details. And that quick flash was my mood board for my character. Yeah, before I start, this character is based off of a original character by one of my friends. It's for his website. It is a monthly subscription anime box website. It's super cool, and not to mention, like, he is like one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And so anything you get from him monthly would be, I don't know, great in my eyes. Yeah, so I'm just going over the face a little bit, adding in some color, and referring back to my pictures. As you can see, I have Reese Witherspoon and Eleanor, oh crap, that's her name in The Good Place. Kristen Bell, yep, that's her name. I like working details on the color layer because as much as I like the line layer, I like the softness of just doing the details with colors rather than line work, at least for this drawing. And of course, like, my go-to is always going to be the face. I like making portraits. Yeah, just adding tiny little details. I don't normally add these many details from the beginning. As you can see, I haven't really fleshed out the rest of the body or the hair, but I think just for some mental clarity, I went over and did some of the face details so I didn't have to stare at a blob face. She didn't deserve to be a blob face. Anyways, her name is Claire. Her personality is very, how would you say it, flamboyant in like an excitable sense of the word. She is kind of like a little spunky. She's like that friend that will like peer pressure you to do like good things, you know what I mean? So she's excitable. She loves video games, like loves them. Like that's why she's like so excited about this game that she probably won. Honestly, she probably murked them all. And yeah, keep on referring back to my mood board. As you can see, I have a bunch of different reference pictures of girls like smiling, being excited. My computer battery almost died. Also for skin color reference, like as far as shading goes, I don't like to stay to like the same palette. As you can see on the side here, I'm just racking up those colors. Yeah, I have a mixture of pinks, oranges, browns, tans, purples even. At some point I go in with a blue and like a light green. In this case, I'm going in with like a lighter blue for the highlights in her face because they're coming from a screen. And so that's going to be a cooler light. Opposed to like, you know, her room light would be probably something of like an orange or yellowish light. And so starting on the hair, I'm going ahead and outlining it because I want to change the whole feel of it without having to be too worried about drawing all over her face. Going back into this little hair craft over here. I think I clicked the line layer. I like to put that on and off a lot of the time because sometimes it just feels like a completely different drawing. At this point I realized my neck proportions were a little slim, or a little thin, and even though it's a cartoon, I wanted it to look a little bit more proportional, so I'm adding more weight to like her shirt and her arms. Going in, putting her signature choker in, because she's cute. Then adding some of the shadows into the hair. I like to start with the back of the neck area first because it really helps me to like figure out how dark I want it there. And it's not going to be too dark, you know, because the light is coming from the front, and so there are only going to be certain places that are going to be dark. And this hair, you know, the hair's subject to change throughout pretty much all my drawings because, I don't know, it's just, I feel like the way that the hair is really shows like the movement of the person. Like as you can tell, hers is kind of all over the place because she had just flung back. And the pictures that I usually reference for this picture, or for this drawing in particular, were like anime hair. Like anime hair is probably like a mix of anime hair and regular hair as my references. It's probably like what I would think is the best reference. I'm just mumbling. You know, honestly, I'm doing this recording over something that I've already done, and I knew I was mumbling then, but I'm feeling a little bit more self-conscious. So I don't know how these light lines got in there, so I started going over them, and putting in some more detail, making those lines nice and crispy. Thickening up this thingy because she was looking like, you know, she was wearing a little tiny baby bib. I realized that I could have made her head smaller, but I liked the head the size that it was, so I ended up adding more bulk to everything else that she was wearing. And if you wanted to pause it and just pause it on that mood board, you could see there are two realistic pictures of celebrities, and then to the right of it, it's the original drawing on the website of what like what I'm referencing as far as details and the shirt and the skirt and pretty much everything. Yes, I had a lot of trouble with the legs, so I did avoid it for a long time. What am I doing? Oh, I was putting a layer over the face. I realized I made the face a little bit too tan compared to the legs because, like I said, I just ignored the legs for so long that I forgot what her original base skin color was. And so yeah, I did an overlay. I think I brightened it. And I'm just moving this over to the side because if you could see the angle of her body, it's a 3/4 view, and I was, that angle was sort of facing more towards the front. Oh, hi, Cole! My cat's entering in my room right now. Come up here, buddy. And yeah, so this is still on the color layer. I'm going in with some detail lines. And this is probably one of my favorites. I know a lot of people say they like doing hair, details in the hair, but details in shirt and clothing is probably one of my favorite things to do. Because it just adds so much definition and so much detail, and overall just makes me feel excited. Excuse me while I eat my beans and cheese. Yeah. And this right here, that detail was just kind of eyeballed because I wanted the skirt to be pleated, and I wanted those pleats to look different, you know, like they were going in different directions. And as you can see, the back of the shirt, I left it a little untucked. Realized I did not like it untucked. She didn't seem like a girl to accidentally untuck her shirt while cheering. But you know, maybe she was. Maybe in a different situation. But her shirt already looks pretty baggy, so I'm gonna assume that it's not a crop top, especially because it's a school uniform. Yeah, so just crisping up my lines here. I guess I didn't like that detail. I think soon I'm going to be working on the proportions of the legs, because while I look at it right now, I realize that they're not really that good. I'm just adding a little bit more details in the shirt. Going back in and do some shadows. Even though I have that shadow layer, I usually like to go over the main character or the thing in the foreground, like in the front, with more details and shadows, just because it sticks out a little bit more. Especially like no matter how, like if I render the face and it is very detailed, I'm gonna put that same, maybe a little less amount of detail in the clothes that she's wearing and the rest of the skin, because I think that it can really like make or break the drawing, like based on, you know, how it reads and how everything kind of flows together. Like, I like to make everything be on the same level of flojo, if you know what I mean. And while I'm doing the details in the shirt, I'm trying to think of, you know, what kind of material she's wearing too. Like with the skirt, like it's not gonna have so many creases and folds because it's a thicker material, whereas the shirt is a little looser. It's probably a little bit heavier than a cotton, like a t-shirt cotton, just based on like how it bags on her arms. And yeah, just going back and crisping up some of those lines, checking my proportions. deleting my horrible lines, adding new lines. Staring at my drawing. I'm probably honestly at this point talking to people. Or maybe eating cereal. I usually just leave it on there and eat some cereal. But no, okay, I'll probably get back to it in a little bit. Oh, there I am. Yep, so you can see I'm still working on this color layer, going in with highlights now, because I've already gone in with my shading. That's why I choose a base color, because the base color is obviously what the shirt's gonna be. The shadow color, it's not in the same color wheel. I try to make it a little bit of a different kind of blue, but not always. Sometimes I'll throw in 2 different kinds of color shades. But for the most part, yeah, I do my base color. I always do my shadows first because highlights are really supposed to be, you know, highlights, like the things that you really want to like showcase in the foreground, and I feel like I can get carried away with highlights, so I like to do them last, just so they leave like a lasting impression and they're not like, you know, half the shirt is highlighted, half the shirt is shadowed, because it is important to leave some of that base color in there. And as you can see with the skirt, I have really only one kind of shader in there, or shading color in there, and I'm going back and forth from this layer to the shadow layer because I know I've already added shadows in the skirt. Later on I kind of erase the shadows in the shadow layer that I have on the skirt because it already looks so so detailed. But yeah, so I'm coming back in with the highlight on this one, and I did too much. I always, yeah, like I said, always go in too hard from the beginning because highlighter is so freaking fun. Wow, I really just didn't even bother to, you know, I should have selected the skirt and then I wouldn't have gone so over, but since I don't have any other details in there, I guess it didn't matter. But yeah, as you can tell, I placed the highlight on the left side of her skirt because that's where the light's coming in. And yeah, always got to be mindful of where the light's coming in because you don't want to just put highlighter and shadow onto whatever, you know. And I've got some random streaks on there too, just because fabric isn't just going to be rounded and just going to be, you know, a certain shape. It's also flat in some areas, and so I think it's important to take into consideration that it's not going to look perfect. This is when I realized that the shape of my legs, they needed to be a little bigger. Looking at it proportionally, that right thigh is way far out, and she would have to have like a bendy bone inner thigh for that to be so forward. And so yeah, so this is just me going in with like some details in the legs, and if you can see on the side, oh yeah, this is what I'm changing up. Moved it to the middle. Because yeah, it was too far out. And that's just something I eyeball. It's more so something I could have corrected with the original sketch, but I like doing those corrections while I'm drawing. Even if it takes a little bit more time, I think that's the process that I like. I know that it would be more efficient if I figured that out at the beginning. Oh my gosh, there's me! So at this point I think I tried to put some... I tried that video thing. I wasn't really sure how I felt about it because my camera's not the best. And when I draw, I kind of stare into a void. But yeah, as you can see, going back into the face, now that I've gotten like the colors in the legs, I realized that the same kind of shading and stuff should be applied to the face. And that's how I like to draw. I like to jump around, and maybe it makes other people dizzy, but it makes me dizzy in a good way. So yeah. When I started doing this hair on this day, I think I was feeling a little weird about details, and I wanted to immediately jump into going strand by strand rather than thinking about the hair as like a whole. Sort of like the skin, you know? And so I did go a little ham on the line work here, which I end up, yeah, pretty much going over because it was too much. But yeah, while well, I guess I'm talking to my roommate right now. I made some, I melted some cheese over some beans for lunch today, and I'm eating it with radish slices. And it's pretty good, you know, for not actually being a full cooked meal or fast food. It's kind of like somewhere in the middle. It's like leftover fridge scrapings. Which I don't mind, because it's pretty tasty and there's a lot of salt in it. Yeah, so I changed the shape of the hair a few times. Went back in and fixed the shading on the face too. Not much to say here. I'm just kind of drawing by like eyeballing it, like figuring out where I want the big chunks of hair, figuring out where I want there to be a little bit more detail and like the tiny sections of hair. Yeah, and hair is like, you know, it's her personality. Like she, I think, is put together, but she is still a little, you know, she's fun, and so her hair is kind of gonna have a mind of its own in some areas. I don't know, the long little pause of my mood board. She's got one of those haircuts where it's both short and long, you know, the anime hairstyles where you can kind of see that she has a short haircut inside of her long haircut. I think those are so cute. It's like, I'm gonna call it an anime mullet, because it really is party in the front, business in the back? Wait. Party in the business and front in the back? You know what I mean. I really spend a lot of time on this hair. As you can tell, I'm just squatting. That big thing next to me is a giant monkey that I got from Walmart or Target or something. I've just always wanted a giant stuffed animal, and I gave her the bang, her bang bangs. Yeah, I went over her bangs in this because she was looking too much like Ariel. I needed to chop off that chunky chunk. Yes. I see in this one when I have that. Oh my god, I look like I have a cramp in my neck. Oh yep, that's when my eyes started hurting. yeah, with the video up there, you can't really see which brushes I'm using. I really only use like 3 different brushes, and this is Krita, if you don't know already. It's a free app. I only use 3 brushes when it comes to drawing like this style, and that's the airbrush. I do that for like shading, and then the flat brush, which I do for boxing out colors, and then it's like a pen brush that tapers off at the end. That's what I'm using now. That's what I use for the majority of details and the original line work. And this is on the line layer. I'm actually going back in and fixing up, you know, some of the details in the line work. This is my least favorite thing, to figure out which angle this foot was going. And I looked for so long for references on this angle and this foot. I really should have just asked my roommate to model her foot for me, but you know, I don't know if that would have been the most comfortable thing to ask someone. I mean, she knew I was drawing, so maybe it wouldn't have been too bad, but you know, sometimes I just, you know, I'm not really ready to have that conversation, you know? And then I went in, tried to figure out what kind of material I wanted for this red ribbon. At first I was like, oh, ribbon, let me get reference for ribbons, let me put all these little details down. But by the time I smoothed it out, it looked really plastic, and so I think that I redid it. Yeah, I went back in and had to fix up the shadows too. There we go, doing the details. I'm just doing ribbon references, just looking at how it should lay. That's why it's so important to have like lots of good reference pictures. And I like having like a good amount of reference pictures from the start, so I don't spend all of my time looking for them while I'm drawing. Yeah, as you can see, I totally switched up the shading in it. Still wasn't too pleased with that. Ribbons aren't a thing I have a lot of experience with drawing. So I was just kind of experimenting here, zooming in and out to see how it matched up with the rest of the drawing. See if I, you know, figured out how to change the angle of things. I love drawing, it's kind of like an experiment. Yes, queen, look at that curvature, nice. Gotta get those little details in, gotta, yeah, the highlights, the shadows. That's why I love highlights and shadows, because they can really do wonders. They can also be misused, as you can see how many times I'm going back. Probably took another bathroom break. Oh look, there's my chat. My chat coming up. It's weird that was only there for a second. I guess you guys can't really see the chat while I'm drawing. Which is okay, I think. I think if I was streaming The Sims or something, it would be more likely to have a chat on the bottom. And yeah, so I'm on the color layer right now, still going in and blocking out this little, I think this is an anime here that was kind of featured on the website, and so I wanted to bring in a few little details in there. It was such a cute little animated thing that I had to have it in there. I tried not to put too many details in there just because I don't want the focus to be on that. I just want it to be an element. And the same with this box. This is the same sort of coloring of the box that you would likely be to receive the the subscription in. So it's basic, you know, basic box, nice and clean. As a box would be. I struggle with this box proportion because there were angles that I wanted it to be at that were just not working. And I think here I added the color and it was too dark because I wasn't even thinking about the shadow layer. I was just thinking about how the shadows would work inside the box. And so I tried on a bunch of different angles. And like ribbon, the tissue paper in this box was something that I just did not feel comfortable drawing, and so that's another thing I use a lot of reference for. And I finally decided on that darker pink. It's a little bit darker than the ground because I didn't want to add too many different colors into this drawing. Like I didn't want it to look too busy. This is just figuring out what color I want the deep shadows to be. But anyways, this bean and cheese mixture tastes so wild, you know? I added the radishes, you know, to scoop them out because I'm out of potato chips and tortilla chips. And I'm too lazy to get them. The quesadilla wrap going on. But I guess I also wanted to feel a little healthy. So yeah, I'm going into this ottoman, putting in some colors. This is something I could have done before going into the details for clothing, but you know, I like to focus on what I want to focus on first and then go in. Oh, there's the trap. I guess it only stays on there for so long. Yeah, so I originally added this orange because I wanted to pop the skirt out a little bit, make it seem a little closer, but I think because of the details it was already going to be so close, and so I didn't want it to take away from the details of flare. So I just did that to add in the shading. Had to do with this with the floor because I had no idea what color I wanted this this carpet to be. As you can tell, I was getting a little weird with it because it could be so many colors, you know, but I wanted it to make sense to her room and I wanted it to not be too distracting, but I also, you know, I thought these lines would add really nice detail to it and bring, you know, diagonal lines like always kind of like lead your eye towards certain ways. So I wanted to work with that and just lead the eye towards her, towards the box, but also mimic like the movement of her arms being flung up, you know? I was really thinking about composition. And I say that like that because I feel like I knew a little, you know? Composition is really important. It's something that you, yeah, for detail-oriented people, it's hard to think about all the time, but as you can see here, I realized that the composition with my hands wasn't really working out because when you're throwing your arms back like that, they're gonna break apart. You're not gonna be holding your game controller unless you're about to throw it at the TV. Or at least, like, I don't know, from all the pictures of references that I saw, nobody was really holding it like that. And I think this opens up the space a little bit more too. And yeah, Yeah. Of course I use my own hand as a reference for this. So she has my hands. She is my child. Oh, I could see you have your mother's hands. And now just going back in, filling in some details. Because this selector tool is not the best, but it does its job. And I'd rather go in and do all these tiny little details than have to, you know, draw around things from the beginning. So this isn't so bad. And that right there is a flyer too. It's one of the flyers for Baksu-chan. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Like, I'm not advertising. It's not sponsored. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about his website, but if I am, I guess I'll try to link it in the description, or if people have questions, they can reach out to me. Yes. So that's what my whole mood board looks like. Got the clothing on one side, real life references on the other side. Oh my god. Look what I did. Yes, I went with the purple for this blanket because I thought it matched her decor. I would imagine that her bed sheets would be purple too. Yeah. Not because she's a girl, but because there's a lightness to it. She's like a pixie. I feel like anybody that dyes their hair pink, besides pink, is like a pixie. Well, actually, pink would probably be a rocker pixie. I don't know. Shouldn't put these people in boxes, but I would like to assume that it's like a pastel party Lolita situation, or punk rock, either one, or both. It's probably always both. Pink is pretty punk rock for a hair color, I would say. Yeah. So yeah, coming back to this box. This box always makes me super nervous. Because I've never dealt with a box of such stature. At least I think I'm ready. Alright. Yep, so going in, changing the box color. Because I remembered, you know, it doesn't really matter how saturated these colors are going to be. If I put enough shadow onto it with a shadow layer, like, you're not really going to be able to tell. And it's actually, I prefer it to have more color than less color because that's just, yeah, it just looks better that way. And I think at this point I was getting super frustrated with the lines and drawing my own personality lines, as I said before. And so I was like, what's up, line tool? Let's be friends. So we were talking about all this in past tense. I feel like I have more of a filter. Yeah, so my cute little Pop-Tart phone. It looks so good. Like, if that was actually a Pop-Tart, it would be kind of small, but I mean, I'd be down. Yeah, what am I doing at this point? Okay, yeah, back to this dreaded foot. Oh my god. Oh, back to the box. Okay. See, this wasn't one of those situations like if I flip the image horizontally, that box would still be out of proportion. As you can tell, I'm like starling or... Yep, there it goes. That's when I really realized. I mean, I could tell without flipping it, but it was hard to figure out what I wanted to do. So I added a new layer. Instead of actually erasing it, I added a completely new layer and just went over it to like cover it up. And so if I switched back and forth, I could see what proportions were working, what weren't, just in case, because I didn't want to draw the same box, you know, again. Yeah. So just making sure that what wasn't working there could work in this one. And what was working, I would bring back. Tissue paper. It's like they live in completely different realities, but they're the same box, you know? Same box, different angle, who dis, like... I don't know. I think I also liked doing that a lot. It's a little cathartic. It's like it's just dancing. So cute. Yep, and so working on more details, making sure everything is coherent. Making it beautiful. Flipping it around. Yeah, see, there's the image of the flyer. And so I'm just correcting the color. I did make it a little bit darker, just because if I choose that exact color, it would have blended into the carpet. So that was my artistic, what's it called? Freedom. I really love doing things like this. It's like when you were younger, like, did you ever imagine like yourself being like the size of your thumb and you just run around all over the place, or like just want to make smaller versions of other things that you had? Maybe that was a product of playing with dolls. You always kind of saw smaller versions of real things, which was really cool. There's my little text bubble for 12 messages, as you could see. I end up deleting that text bubble because it is a little distracting. And not in like a cute, like adds extra things to the drawing kind of way. For me, I just didn't like it, it was too distracting. And so I guess I just stared at it for like 20 minutes. Fixed up some of these lines. I also, yeah, went back to the box. I like to leave things alone for a little bit too, so I don't like hyperfixate on what I think it should look like. Yeah. Because I can really go overboard sometimes, like when I think about... like when I'll just overthink shapes. And so it's nice to like work on something else for a little bit and then have like a cross-reference on like what reality that box is supposed to be in. Did that sound deep? But yeah, I like to make everything kind of like be in like the same reality. Oop, there's that reference I was looking for. When I brought it in, I felt super scandalous because I don't even want to say what was in the rest of that picture, but you could use your imagination. I felt bad actually putting that reference onto Claire because completely different people, you know. Anyways, the woman in that reference picture, by the way, was just twirling a baton or something like that. I was working on this sock, man. I felt like I was working on this for years. Normally I really like drawing feet, but for some reason this angle of foot, because it was foreshortened and because it was behind her and the shading was all crazy, like, it drove me nuts. Like, I just wanted to call it a day and like put a shoe on her or something, but who sits on a carpet with freaking shoes on? The disrespect. Oh, there's our lady again. Lady in red. I'm eating beans and cheese. So this is what my image looks like with the shadow layer on, like it's visible. And I'm still drawing on the color layer because, I don't know, I just wanted to put in those details and still see like where the shading was going. And smoothing out some of these lines in the blanket, bringing in some highlights because, you know, that's where the light was hitting the most. There's a kiwi there. And going back into details of my hands, using my own hand as reference. Trying not to add too many details. I realized some of these fingers were wacky, so yeah, they were just wild. I don't even know what I was... See, that was me looking at my actual hand, putting in too many details and references, and then eventually you'll be able to see that. I decide against that. But what do I do? Move all the fingers down and flip a bird. Now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't look too bad, you know, the hand. But then I was like, nope, these fingers are the fingers that I want. But I still made them the right size and shape. You know, I made that one the pinky finger. Oh, that was my original sketch. Yeah. Like cartoon drawings of hands, like, and other things, there's like a fine line between having too much detail and having just enough detail that it's like, it reads really well. And so I just scaled her hand up because compared to her head, like, it should be around the same size. This one is a little bit smaller, but I don't mind. And then, at this point I was probably, I was looking for controllers. So threw in a bunch of them. I went with like an Xbox one, this weird half crescent moon shaped one, which was pretty cool, probably uncomfortable to hold, but, oh, that looks so small. Did I make that bigger? Anyway, I'm imagining her playing something, like an online game, but also something with quests, maybe because that's what I would want to play right now. Oh, and that actually did make it bigger. It's like I'm making a reaction video to my own drawing, which I liked. I liked a lot. It also makes me feel weird. I both hate and love drawing hands. It's like I love it because it's like similar to drawing a portrait. Like there's just so many details. And I feel like hands are like, they're still like portraits, you know, like they're, I feel like if you look at your hands like that, your hand has a personality. You can tell that my hands look like this, so his hands can look like that. You know what I'm saying? Love hands. But yeah, going back in, doing some hair stuff. Just doing some hair, just chilling in Cedar Rapids and doing some hair stuff. Making sure that all my details are good. Throwing in some darker darks. Fixing my teeth. And my tongue. Under my mouth. Oh, and then adding the beautiful face highlights. I didn't want to make her look too gooey. Like, you know, some drawings of girls, like, just make them look like they're covered in, like, Jello or in oil, and we don't all have to be greasy girls, you know? It's cute sometimes, but we're not all greasy girls. But I did want a little bit of glisten there. Excuse me. Cool, I've nearly been talking for an hour. Oh yeah, I was just having a blast with the hair at that point. Again, flipping from the hair to the controller, back to the little brochure down there, just figuring out what looked better in the composition, what I liked better. Doing some random strands. Oh, I love that strand. That was a complete accident too. I was trying to draw like a curvier line, but that one just showed itself up, you know. Oh yeah, that's when I was ready to get down to business. It's crazy how similar I got those colors without even knowing. Yeah. Reference pictures are so crucial. Even if you're drawing cartoons, I think it's so good to figure out what stuff should look like. And it never has to be perfect. That's the best thing about drawing like cartoons and anime. Like, it really doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I'm the artist, I can make it look like whatever I want anyway. But for my mental sake, I have to make it look somewhat similar. That brush right there is the Q-tip brush, which I think in the future I will use at a lesser strength because it can be so melty at times. Flipping back over the shower. And that is not the final shadow layer, by the way. I did end up going over that because I wasn't that satisfied with it. So yeah, just cleaning up the lines in the hands because this is, you know, just as important as the face. A little less important, but just as. I'm putting in those highlights too to show that the TV is reflecting off of her hand. And those tiny lines. And see, now you want to look at it, you know? Not that you didn't want to look at it before, but it's not distracting, but it's just like, ooh, that's a hand, you know what I mean? And I'm actually pretty satisfied with that hand. Normally, I give myself a really hard time about hands, because this is, like, I don't have that much experience drawing digitally. Even drawing just like on paper, drawing visually, I have a really hard time just trusting like that I know the proportions correct enough to really just jump in. But I think it turned out well. And shockingly enough, I didn't have a reference for this one either. And that turned out well as well. I really had to pay attention to where the highlights were in this one too, because it could have been really easy to just throw in a bunch of shadows and highlights just to make sure that you guys knew that it was a hand. But yeah. Keep on jumping back and forth because I want it to look like the other hand too, you know, while also tying into the face. I remember when I was making the video, I was like, oh, I'm totally done. The hands was the last thing I had to do, and then I was like, oh crap. Gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this. Like, it's a never-ending process when you draw, because there are always things that you can make look better. Maybe that's like the artist in me talking, like never satisfied situation, but honestly, it's because you can't always make things look better. And that's precisely what I'm doing right now. I'm just making these things look better, just adding the details. And this was me experimenting with different light, because I was thinking about how that light was actually going to be hitting there, but I realized it was a little distracting after a while, and I was just hyper-fixating on it. Even though it looks good, I don't think that it, you know, match the rest of the drawing around it, and I was more satisfied with the way that I had it previously. So yeah. As you can see, I'm still working on the color layer. I just stay on that layer. Unless there are major changes. The major changes I will put in the line layer. And then I can refer to the line layer and just throw it back. Or throw it back. But I can turn off or turn on the line layer at minimum opacity. Just to figure out where those changes are going to be in composition. Yeah, I'm not a big, like, section every piece of clothing out on each layer to make it easier. I'm more just like 3 layers and that's good. Although, I know you can't see 3 layers. I really am just working on 3 of them, but the rest of those layers are just reference pictures. and like previous sketches. And used to get, I just went in and labeled all of my layers, which was a little late in the game, but it's okay. And so yeah, so this is, I just went back over, did a new shade layer. I covered the whole thing up with like this purpley color to give the room a little bit of a haze to it. Then went into details, and I'm flashing back and forth from one shade layer to the next because there are certain parts of it that I really liked and certain parts that I wanted to avoid doing again. And so right now I'm just kind of like carving out, erasing some of these lines, and then adding it back in. I really wanted some of this box to be in the light because I didn't spend so much time doing details to not have it show a little bit. Yeah. And I zoomed out this far while I was doing this because I wanted to look at the composition as a whole, and I wanted to make sure that things were balanced in that whole and not just you know, over shaded or overly detailed in one area. And by doing this, it kind of made a big difference in, what was I gonna say? Oh, big difference in focus, like where in a sense, if you were to take a picture of this, like where the camera would be focused, it would be focused on Claire. And so, yeah, this was me just putting things in and trying out some new things. And that's just the shadow layer. As you can see, there's not much going on her actual body or like face or anything, because I've already added those on in the color layer. Yeah, and so that's essentially going to be the darkest part. I wanted to push that stuff to the back, but still give it detail. Like, I like doing like shading because even if things are in the back, it's like the same thing as the hair. Like, even though it's in the back, like it's still gonna be detailed, you know? Maybe not as much. Oh yes, look at that line. Another line I could have used the line tool for, but I just did not want to. And I rest my case. And then I was adding a tiny little detail here just to figure out if that's what I wanted. I just couldn't figure out what color I wanted it, what the text tone wanted to be. I probably should have figured out what kind of phone I wanted her to have first. But I ended up going with this, just these cute little like lines. Yeah, just one of the cute little lines. Fixed up my shadow layer. Oh, those are all my other layers, by the way. My original drawings, I just went ahead and deleted all of those because they were driving me crazy. And I think this is a different color shadow that I went in with. The first one was more saturated. It was more saturated purple. And so I went in with a darker purple, just to push some areas further back. Experimented with putting some shadows on her. Oh, have you guys drank enough water today? I have not.